Though you may build a web page template in any order in Dreamweaver, it's often fastest and most logical to start by blocking out the page structure with HTML and CSS styles, then build out and style content from top to bottom, one block at a time. Let's first start by taking a look at what we have. Here's our website mockup. If we were to break it into logical blocks, it would look something like this. We've got our header at the top, which includes our logo, our banner image, and our navigation menu. Then we have our main area that includes the main content on the left, the sidebar on the right, and then a third block with our footer, which has 3 columns, one for our footer navigation, one for our contact information, and one for networking. Now let's switch over to Dreamweaver. We're in our managed site, so we've managed a site. We've told Dreamweaver where to find the files for our project. We'll start by creating a new page. Go to File, New, and here you'll choose the blank page category, HTML type. We don't want any pre-existing layout. We'll keep that set to none. And the only other thing we can choose is our doc type. This is a line of code that goes at the top of our page and tells the browser how to interpret the type of code that it sees in our file. The default right now is XHTML 1.0 transitional, but you could roll back to HTML 4.01 transitional or even jump forward to HTML5. That's totally up to you, depending on the type of content and code that you plan on having on your website. We'll stick with the HTML 4.01 transitional. Click the Create button. Now I want to show you what's going on here in split code view so you can see where we're at. Here's what Dreamweaver creates for you automatically when you create a new page. You've got your doc type at the top above the opening HTML tag. You have your whole head area, which has room for meta tags and your title. And then you have your body area and your closing HTML tag. On the right side of the screen is our preview in browser style area, the design view, which shows you approximately what your page would look like in a browser window, though it's always best to double check multiple browsers while you're building to make sure that it renders properly. But as you can see, there's nothing there yet because there's nothing inside those opening and closing body tags. Now, I usually like to start by plugging in a title. So for us, we'd like to have Cupcake Mary, the name of our website. Let's also add a little bit of a description here. With your titles, you want to keep them to about 70 characters or less. Anything longer might get truncated or cut off in the browser window title bar. So once we click back into our code, you'll see that text that we put in the title area up here has updated into our code. Now for our project, we're going to create our content blocks with div tags. A div tag is a container tag that can be absolutely or relatively positioned on the page, can be styled with CSS, can be positioned with CSS, and contain any content which itself can be styled and positioned with CSS. What's more, div tags can be nested inside other div tags and even layered one on top of the other as stacked layers, and you can determine that stacking order with what's called the z-index in the CSS. Remember, we need several blocks in our code in order to support our layout. So the first thing I'll do is put my cursor right after the opening body tag and insert my first div. There's 2 ways you can insert them, one through the insert menu and one through the insert panel. They both do the same thing, so it almost doesn't matter which way you do it. If you're going to use the insert menu, choose Insert, Layout Objects, Div Tag. There's another AP div there. It's another type of div tag, which we'll cover in a later movie. So you just click on that. This Insert Div Tag dialog box opens, and it asks you where you would like to insert this div. You could use the default at insertion point, or you can choose after start of tag or before end of tag. I'm just going to click at the insertion point. You could also set the CSS class if you happen to already have a CSS style with a custom class that you'd like to apply to it, or you can add an ID to this div tag. We want to create all of our divs with IDs so that when we go into our CSS panel and start creating custom styles, those styles will automatically apply to these div tags as long as the style has the same name as the ID that we give it here. So I want to create an ID style for something called container. We're going to create a fixed width design that will be center aligned in the browser window. In order to do that, we need a container that is center aligned and fixed width. This is what we're creating right now. So it drops the div into our code. Div ID is equal to container in quotes. That's the name, our ID. And then in between there's some dummy text and then our closing div tag. That dummy text is there just for your eyes only so that you can know where to place your content inside that div container. You could erase it if you wanted, but know that if you save this page and posted it as it is now on the web, that content would actually appear because it's inside the body. The other way that you could insert div tags is through the Insert panel. You'll choose the Layout option, and then you can choose Insert Div Tag here. And the same thing happens. You can say Insert to Wraparound Selection before, after, start, etc. Again, adding the class, adding the ID, and clicking OK. I'm just going to click Cancel because I don't want to add anything there yet. The last thing you would want to do, and I think this is really important, especially if you're new to coding, is to add some comment tags. And you'll start with a left bracket, an exclamation point, and 2 dashes. And then anything you put in here will not be shown in the browser window. And I like to put comment tags at the end of each div so that I know in the code where my containers begin and end. And the reason I do this is because containers are often nested one inside the other, and we're going to do that with our content blocks. And it's good to visually see where your containers end. That will help you as your page starts to grow.